as a 6-year-old, I looked up at my grandfather and said, who's going to help them?
And what the listeners won't know is in this very moment, you have tears in your eyes.
Now, I never dreamed in a million years, but I knew that I was always in God's will.
And say, hey, listen, you know, my mom, my dad's, they're finally getting to the point to where they may need some help and some care.
Well, I think, first of all, when a young woman comes to me and says, the Lord laid you on my heart, then I automatically know.
I actually think you showed me the exact road.
I showed you the exact road. Around the table with Vickie. Just like gathering around the dinner table with loved ones and friends, we're here to share stories, insight, and inspiration.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's an exciting day. Welcome to Around the Table with Vickie. I'm your co-host, Christopher Runk, and to my right, joining us today, I have a very special woman, a geriatric specialist in her field, caring for thousands of seniors in the area, a leader in her local community, literally leading thousands of employees throughout her 35-year career, manages multiple 501c3s that do incredible work in our local community and actually statewide. And I'm sure we'll learn about those down the road. And she means a lot to a lot of people, but she's a little extra special to me because I have the honor and privilege of introducing her as mom. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Vickie Runk.
Oh, hello, everybody. Such an exciting day, Christopher.
Absolutely. I know this has been a passion of yours and something that you've wanted to talk about for almost 7 years, probably at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of tell us how we got here, some of your passions, where you think this may go?
So through the course of my career, I've noticed that there's just a lot of people that are hurting out there. And whether that be that they're taking care of mom and dad and they just have so much going on and they don't have all the answers and they need somebody to turn to, or whether it's an employee that has, a hard time with life and really struggling with trying to find childcare and trying to find a way to come to work every day to where her heart can give care because at home it's broken. I've seen all of that over 35 years and just really wanting to get before the people. First of all, letting them know who we are, right?
Sure.
So that's been a little bit of a mystery through the years. So this show, I think, will set a lot of that straight. And I want to be able to be a resource to people. I want to be able to reach out and find topics that matter to the aging population, but also things about leadership and our Lynchburg community, which is so great, and the people that live in the community, the people that help run our city government, community leaders, civic leaders, and bring a lot of good stuff to our show. There's so much negative in the news these days, and there's so much ways of the world that would bog us down with negativity. And I think that if we live each day in gratefulness, that it changes our whole life. And I really want to be a voice for people that just are having a problem finding their way, and just to offer security in the aging process, and then opportunity for people to find out more about the topics that we're going to bring to light over the next few months here.
So you mentioned that there's a little bit of an unknown surrounding who Ranken Pratt is, and whether people would just view it as a large business in our local community, but they may not know all the inner workings. What are some of those smaller details that you hope to kind of bring to light?
Well, many of you don't know that Ranken Pratt was not just handed to us as a family. It was something that the Lord put in my heart back when I was a little girl. And I tell the stories that I would be walking with my grandfather, who, when I was 6 years old, way back in the 70s, and we would be going to a playground, but I would look over to my left-hand side and see a senior citizen that was struggling to carry in his groceries. And as a 6-year-old, I looked up at my grandfather and said, who's going to help them carry those groceries? I think at that moment, and we went back to our hometown.
We did
recently.
I actually think you showed me the exact road.
I showed you the exact road
where that older woman was struggling to carry her groceries.
Yeah.
And you said you got out and you met her there.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in that exact moment is when you knew your calling on your life, really, as a 6-year-old girl.
Yeah. So growing up, I always knew that I had a higher power. And I didn't know for a while that it was because I was so young that, it was God and leading my thought patterns, leading my desires, leading my capabilities as I began to get older, and really putting my vision in place, which was, looking back now was super exciting. And then I had a great set of parents, still do, Dr. Norman and Linda Pratt, who was, still is from East Tennessee. But we moved to Virginia in the 70s to become part of Liberty University. Back then it was Lynchburg College. And your papa, my father, was part of the first graduating class in here in Lynchburg with Dr. Jerry Falwell Senior. And I can remember just those early years of feeling a draw to the elderly, whether it be in church, in the grocery store, and even today when we're out, you'll say to me, it's like you have a marker on your back because the seniors in a grocery store or in a shopping center is drawn to come and speak to me or to ask for help, and then I'm drawn to them as well. So I do believe that as parents, and this is what my parents did for me, it's our job to cultivate those visions and those dreams of the little girls or little boys in some senses that, whatever is going on in a child's heart, God has placed there. And you think, oh, they're so little. No, I knew very firmly that I had a passion for senior citizens. Now, I never dreamed in a million years that my passion would lead to such a platform 35 years later, as we started in 1992. But I knew that I was always in God's will. And I think when whatever career you're in, and this is something I really want to get across the airwaves and our podcast, whatever career God's brought you to, that if you have the faith to follow his will for your life, that you will never go wrong. And an undetermined amount of faith went into this, those years. And so going back to my start of the story, I think I knew when I was 6 years old that I wanted to serve seniors in some way. My dad was a Southern Baptist preacher through the years. He worked for Dr. Falwell through the early years. I went to elementary school and high school right here in Lynchburg, Virginia. And I developed a core group of friends, a core group of older church members that, would always, I still have a man that would give me Tootsie Rolls every Sunday. And you met him recently. And I was always fond of him. And back in the day, just those elder deacons that, would come and we just had special relationships, senior citizens in the church. And today I have had the distinct privilege of caring for a lot of those people that back when I was little and in the church, never in a million years would I have known that God was going to use my life, my family, my parents, and now my children to serve so many seniors in the area. Having said all that, we're not perfect. We give care to, just like you said, thousands of seniors in the area. And I think there's a misconception that we're always perfect at everything we do, and we are certainly not. And so we have to always be aware that we want to continue to do better. Now, 32 years of that has been on our own as Ranken Pratt. And 5 years previous to that, I worked for a major nursing home here in town, which used to be Camelot Hall Nursing Home. So right out of college, got into that. And was the director of social services, the director of activities, ended up going through the administrator and training program. And so
that I think a key point there is that was at, correct me if I'm wrong, but 21 years old.
Yes.
You had a major position, basically being the lead director for admissions and keeping that building full. I think that's a key part of the story. At such a young age, you were able to meet the demands of a large company and keeping that building full, and then ultimately down the road, which is a whole nother story, doing it for yourself.
That's exactly right. And so, growing up, I also had a set of grandparents that I loved and adored. I had two sets of grandparents, but one in particular, your Nana, my mom's mother and dad, really needed an extreme amount of care. And at age 16, I was over their medical care. And so I was going into the hospitals and talking to the doctors. Then I go back and explain it to Nan and Pop because I had an innate ability, a gift that went along with my vision. It was a gift that God gave me that I've never taken for granted, that I would be able to understand the medical part of the geriatric body and how things were working. And so I was very blessed to be able to bring so much of that to my grandparents' aging bodies. And my mom and my dad, your Nana and Papa,
Hmm.
could really relate to the things that I was saying. And the doctors used to say to me, "Are you going into nursing?" No, I just really understand. The God's given me a gift. And so was privileged to care for them. I lost my grandfather, who was completely the light of my world during those years at age 16. Was really hard. So I understood the grief process at a young age of losing a loved one that you love so well, a grandparent. We all cherish our grandparents, they can do no wrong. And then really taking my grandmother, 4'11", little Indian Shirley Joyce, that would give me a run for my money and really teach me patience. And also teach me in those early years that the geriatric mind doesn't always work the way we want it to work. And back then, Alzheimer's and dementia had really it hadn't come on the platform yet. We called it hardening of the arteries. Oh, they got the hardening of the
Hmm.
arteries. And so we didn't even know about Alzheimer's and dementia. Looking back, I think she had some of that.
Sure.
So, but she taught me patience. And
Well,
I
I
was,
remember as a little boy, probably 3 years old, 4 years old, following
Mhm.
around behind you, turning on her
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 oxygen.
oxygen machine.
Yeah.
And I mean, it truly has been a family affair, caring for seniors. Really, our whole family for many years now. And I think it's really important to tell that story of you had a calling at such a young age, and really God allowed you to continue it through your entire life till today.
That's right. And it's been such an honor. I mean, you know that when we go into our facilities, you guys kind of watch me get pulled away to the activities table with the seniors, and that's really where I love to be. I mean,
Oh yeah,
everybody
if you can't find mom, she's in activities. She's in one of them,
we're
maybe multiple ones.
we're playing games, and I'm hugging and loving, and they give me the strength. Lots of times when this kind of a job can get very heavy,
Hmm.
and your cup needs to be filled up. You can be empty at times. And so there's nothing I love more, or I know when I need to go and be with them because I'm reminded of the calling. I will never forget. There was a time back in 2018, I even remember the year, that your dad and I were doing our normal visits through the homes, and we went into Pearls of Life, which is a memory care facility. And everybody in there has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's and dementia, and to a degree that this gentleman shouldn't know what he was saying to us. And he pulled your dad aside and he looked both of us in the eyes because we were getting ready to leave out the door. We just visited with everybody. And he looked at us and I will never forget it. It was a time that I needed my cup filled up. And he said, "I want to thank you both for creating such a wonderful place for us to be in." And at that moment, the Lord filled my cup and I left out of there in tears. And I was just reminded, I don't do this for myself. This is nothing that I do for me. I do it because I was called by God, but also to serve thousands. Senior living is broken down into several different categories, and so we have the independent living, who also challenge us. Don't you know? They're more active than you and I are. You get on our Facebook pages, and they're going here and there, and to the orchards, and to the movies, and to see Elvis, and all kinds of great things. But then we have the assisted living part, which are people that are beginning to decline physically, and then the end of life care for that particular level, to where we literally hold hands of thousands of families and help them through the journey of letting go and ultimately God calling them home, which is a celebration, right? But it's really hard during that time. And then our memory care facilities, it's all about Alzheimer's and dementia. And again, do we do it perfect? No, but I'm a little biased. I think we
Sure.
do it pretty
Well,
good.
yeah, I'm sitting here looking at you having this conversation. What the listeners won't know is in this very moment, you have tears in your eyes, explaining and walking through the process and the journey and how we get here. And I think that's really true, that we're not perfect by any means, but we're always striving to do better. And you're not going to get that hands-on care and that relationship, that local community relationship, walking in the buildings, being able to get to an owner, really in a big something, a larger community. You know, it's really this homegrown, family owned and operated, which is what we've been banked on for 32 years now at this point.
Yes. And so having said all that, we want our families to know that they're loved, and we train our staff to help them through a journey. But it's important that a family member is able to join that journey with us, and the judgmental part of things have to kind of be left aside, because once we get to that point, we're all just doing the best we can. And there are days that, you've heard me on the phone, we're short of staff some days, or somebody didn't show up that was supposed to cook the brownies, or somebody didn't show up that was supposed to do laundry that day. So then our staff are kind of forced to, just like you would in a family at home, right? If I can't cook, you guys are going to make sure you eat that night. And same thing, we all just kind of blend in and work together. So it really is important that the family joins that care plan with us. The family joins our efforts. And if that doesn't happen, then it's normally not a good experience. So we want to make sure that our families are ministered to, are cared for, and are educated. There's a lot to be said about family education, and that's what this show is going to be so important about.
Absolutely.
Is we're going to highlight some seniors that'll sit right there in that seat where you're sitting, and we're going to talk about, how did you decide it was time to go to independent living? How did you decide it was time to just get away from home and let us do everything for you? We're going to have a couple join us in a few weeks that are going to be really good for our listeners to tune into and hear their journey, hear their path, what they chose, how they chose it. I think those are things that people really want to hear. And sometimes senior living or giving up your home and moving away isn't the most popular topic to talk about.
Well, until you get into that time of need, it's really hard to find information. I know a lot of times in the local community, folks will come up to you at the grocery store or in a restaurant and say, "Hey, listen, my mom, my dad, they're finally getting to the point to where they may need some help and some care, and we're really struggling to even know where to start." Right? We don't know where to go. We don't know what to look for. We don't know what companies to allow to come in or come out. We don't know what to do. And I know that's a passion of yours during the show, to kind of help folks along that journey.
Right. And really not to focus just on Ranken Pratt companies. There's so many home health agencies out there that can come into the house and take care of them. And let's talk about that, right? So we'll have some people on the show about that. There are other assisted livings in the community that's not connected with us, but they're great communities. So, I plan to have some of those on the show as well. People say, "You're crazy." No, I think it's interesting, and I think it's necessary that we talk about inclusion on this show, and to be able to give people all of those choices. Because I've told our staff before, we cannot possibly serve all the seniors in this area. We don't have enough beds. And so we want to make sure that the other senior living communities are feeling the love and the support. And so we'll have some different administrators on the show that actually operate other facilities other than a Ranken Pratt facility, which will be fun for me. If I can say that my goal over the last 32 years of doing this on my own, my goal has been to elevate senior living in all levels. So if we're spending a ton of money on activities and food, and some of our competitors isn't, really doing that right then, we want to make sure that they're going to have to do the same thing.
Sure. We're pushing them.
We're pushing,
That's right.
And we're making each other better.
Yeah. On the same topic of that, I know many times people may not realize we have our own nursing school. And I know one of your passions is, if I can't train everybody, right, and they're not coming to me already trained, let me open up a school where I can teach them the Ranken Pratt way. If they become an employee of mine, great. If not, and some don't, they're going out into the local community, having the Ranken Pratt training, which ultimately provides a better service for that senior wherever they may be located at.
100%. And that is something that you and I started back in 2018, the Ranken Pratt School of Nursing Instruction. And we'll have the director of that here on the show in the next couple of weeks. And she's going to talk about opportunities for CNA registration and certification, and how you get into that. But we'll also talk about the training efforts that go into making sure that when that student has graduated from our program, that they feel loved, that they feel motivated, and that whatever their heart is going through is able to be somewhat supported by our Ranken Pratt team so that they can go give good care with their heart. Because I believe good care is given with a healthy heart. And you can't have a broken heart as a caregiver and be able to go in and take care of a sick individual that's living in our community, because you've got to have a healthy heart in order to do that. And I'm not talking about a healthy heartbeat. I'm talking about a whole healthy
Spiritual,
heart,
emotional, yeah.
spiritual, emotionally.
Yeah. We're not just going to talk about Ranken Pratt things, though. We talk about local community events. You talked about having special guests on, maybe upper management of cities and sheriffs and that kind of. Can you talk a little bit about your excitement in that kind of field too?
So I believe that a community is only as strong and well as the leaders of its community. And I tell people all the time, I'm asked a lot, well, why is it that we can't get better benefits as senior citizens? And the one thing I always say to them is you need to watch who you're electing, because those elected officials will go to work for you on a city level, a state level, and coming up now, we're getting ready to have a national election. And so then you got to watch who you're voting for that. And if senior rights matter to you and Medicare benefits matter to you, Medicaid benefits matter to you, health, vision, all the things that it takes to live as a senior citizen, then you need to watch who you're voting for. So we'll have people on the show, because it's an election year, that tells the different things. Hopefully, I'll really be able to dig into and see what we're going to do for seniors in our community, especially on a local and state level. And I've had the distinct privilege of getting to know so many upper management officials in the city and sheriffs. We actually had one work for us for 7 years. Sheriff Jimmy Ayers, and Mike Miller is a great friend of ours. Whit Johnson with Campbell County, and so Whit Clark with Campbell County. And so we want to have all of them on so we can hopefully prepare our listeners to write into us with questions for each of them. So we'll give you plenty of time to know when they're coming on the show. And Christopher's going to tell you how you can write in with your questions so I can ask those questions so you can make informed decisions on who you're voting for, and not just walk into a school system where you're going to vote, or a church, and say, well, now he looks like he might be a pretty good guy. Your grandmother used to say, they look so nice. You remember when she said that, your Nanny Runk? She'd say, now they look just so nice.
Or they have a good heart.
They got a good heart.
They got a great heart.
Yeah. We need to know what they stand for.
Yeah. So a lot of times, we in the business world, we come across just some incredible individuals, and I know I'm always surprised that I'm like, wow, these people are right here in Lynchburg. Special guests, people that are coming into the area, people that are doing great things in the Lynchburg community that I'm not even sure people realize. And I know I always sit back and go, wow, if there was a way to highlight them a little bit and allow people to know what they're doing, or maybe, promote their business. I know that's a big passion of yours as well, being a community leader, to highlight other businesses that are doing a great job.
Yes, and I cannot wait to do that. We already have a list that we're going by. And I just know in the early years of the development of Ranken Pratt, if I wasn't given a few breaks, if some elder business people, entrepreneurs, didn't believe in this little girl, the younger me, I would have never been able to get where I was as easily as I did. And so I want to be able to extend that hand of, how can I help you? What can I do to get you where you want to be? I met with a young lady last week, you and I both did, that came to me and said, I don't know why I'm here, but the Lord laid you on my heart, and this is what I need. And the minute she told me what she needed, we met together as a team, and we're going to make it happen for her. And there's nothing I love better than to help, especially young women, but I'll do a young man too. But young women in entrepreneurship get to that next level, and we want to really focus on some of that.
Let's talk about that a little bit. I know I always have enjoyed being your son. You've really allowed all of your children to basically create their own world, right? And there was never a time of really being told no to almost anything. We're always, and I think that's a company motto, we're always really open to trying anything. And if it doesn't work, then we say we at least gave it a whirl, and we always put our best foot forward. with those young women, or really anybody that I know there's all kinds of people that we're coming across that have fantastic ideas. What are some of those things that get you excited about helping and mentoring, maybe is a better way of putting it?
Well, I think, first of all, when a young woman comes to me and says, the Lord laid you on my heart, then I automatically know that God's been in her ears. She's followed some things that I've done. She knows my conviction. She knows what I stand for. And so we already have a common ground, a common spirit. And so then after that, I really want to hear, what is her business plan? Where does she want to be in a year? And then I want to see her grow. And that's the most joy for me. And there's a lot of girls that, that I'll send back and forth. I'm known for quotes. I love to find quotes and encourage, and that'll be a part of the show. And I want to be able to direct them in the right path. And there's been so many mistakes that I made at that age that I don't want to see them have to do. So I want to help mentor them.
Yeah. As we're getting close towards the end of our first show.
Wow.
I can't
That
believe
went
we
fast.
actually, made it. We were all trying to figure out what are we going to talk about, and that came pretty easy. Are there just a few final thoughts that, you want to leave folks with, or, you hope to really hone in over these next weekly episodes?
I want to be a source for you guys. I want to make sure that this show is not just us talking about us. I know a lot of you are very interested in that. So that the first start of the story was about me as a little girl. We'll continue to go through a lot of different things
to tell there.
You guys don't know that I do. I get more questions about, how do you do everything you do? And I'm just gifted with a really good team that's sitting in this room today that you can't see over here, that's directing all that makes me look good, sound good, and give me the words that I need. But I really want to be a source for you, for everybody out there. And so we want you to write in, Christopher, where they write to.
Around the Table with Vickie
Yes.
is our social media handles. And
so, start writing in and let us know what you want to see on this show. If you have a young entrepreneur you want us to feature, we will. And we'll have a good time doing it. But I also want you to know from my heart that this road that we've, really walked over the last 32 years has been a victorious road, but it's also one of extreme faith. So I want to share my faith with everyone. I want them to know that, if you believe in something hard enough and you really rely on God as your source, that the sky is the limit. And I have extraordinary tales to tell about that, of God's miraculous power in our life, miracle after miracle, that is really, really worth you listening to. And again, I think the persona of us is that we were just handed this, and
Sure.
that is not at all.
No.
So we want to tell those stories.
Lots of sacrifice. I can say that. You mentioned quotes were really important to you, and I know I give you a hard time about them. She spends hours looking at quotes. I know you want to end each episode with a quote that is important to you or has maybe caught your attention. So I'll leave that up to you. And here's one of Vickie's famous quotes she's found.
That's right. We'll be ending the show every time with this, and I hope it speaks to your heart. When it's right, it will give you as much energy as it takes. It will inspire you, and it will motivate you, encourage you, and often it will challenge you and push you and maybe even scare you. When it's right, what you reach for will reach back towards you, and that's by Brianna West.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the first episode of Around the Table with Vickie. We hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you this time next week.